I'm Jerika. I use she, her.
I'm Embers and I use he, him.
And I'm Air. I also use he, him, and this is Insight Check, where we delve into the dungeon of your bad decisions to retrieve the treasure of wisdom. Hi, everybody.
If there's one thing I think we're in store for today, it's juicy, savory,
Fresh
seared
off the grill. Yeah.
wisdom fresh off the grill.
Umami. Yeah.
Yeah.
What could you be talking about?
I don't know, but
You
I think
won't
we might
believe
find
me
out.
even if I tell you. I don't think.
In the DC zone, the dungeon crawl zone.
Let's get into the dungeon crawl because we've got some hot, juicy content we're serving up fresh to you. Embers, why don't you kick us off?
Yes, this is a special enough dungeon crawl. We should give it some gravitas. So imagine your folksiest PC sitting around the campfire. Hello, dungeon, my old friend. It's time to raise kobolds again. Ancestral Guardians is so OP. What PC to roll at level 3? Dissonant whispers that were planted in my brain still remain. Come help me crawl this dungeon. In long rest dreams I walked alone. Parties traveled far from home. 'Neath halo of my party's camp, I noted dungeon crawls ain't summer camp. When my rolls were disadvantaged by Bishaba's light, ain't got dark sight. Oh well, that's dungeon crawling.
Well done. Just like boigas that I use.
That's how I like my boigas.
Me, I like them a little raw. Not entirely unlike the content we're about to talk about next. Segue.
Oh no.
Embers. On top of that beautiful musical interlude,
God.
I think you have something to tell us about brand synergy.
Okay, yes. I think in the process, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself, because really, when you get down to it, is what is brand synergy, if not what's inside all of us in our hearts? So,
Aren't we what we eat, though?
I thought you could argue that. You could also argue that we are what we purchase.
Ooh.
That's where the brand really directs what you become as a human. I mean, that's what they taught me in school. So while I was in school, I also had a favorite bar. And while I was at that bar with my best friend, we drank a lot of beers. And when we drank a lot of beers, we turned to each other and said, you know what the world needs? The world needs a parody magazine, like Cat Fancy, but about pirates. And so we made 12 issues of incredibly unprofessional content that we found hilarious, and we called it Pirate Fancy. And we had the kind of dedication, passion, hard work that almost forced us to drop out of school. But in addition, it created the aforementioned unprofessional content. And it is in that vein that I want to present to you Wendy's TM Feast of Legends. Parentheses, rise from the deep freeze.
There is a PDF document.
There is indeed.
And the most disturbing thing about this PDF document
Now you're
is on
saying
the
something.
back cover, there is an ISBN number. I am both appalled and delighted. I did not know I could feel both of these emotions in such high amounts at the same time.
Wendy's, in their endless battle with Arby's for the soul of geek culture via fast food advertising, has released by PDF a complete TTRPG adventure guide, rulebook, DM guide, and adventure module, complete with custom character sheets and a story the likes of which you never knew you needed to see. To give you a preview, you may or may not know, the Wendy's brand focuses around Wendy, a redhead with pigtails, who now is armor-clad and must face a new
Possibly
challenge.
from the nation of Freshtovia?
I would argue most definitely from the nation of Freshtovia.
And now her arch nemesis, the Ice Jester, plots to destroy her kingdom and throw the entire realm into a frozen age. The queen seeks a band of adventurers with the courage to take on the Ice Jester and his horde of frozen minions.
Now, I do want to point out that on page 93, the third to last page in this compendium, there is indeed a picture of the Ice Jester, and 2 pages north of that on page 91 is the Ice Jester stat block. Which includes actions such as icicle karate. And my favorite, ice to meet you. The Ice Jester swings a bat made of frozen beef at his opponents, doing 2d12 plus 2 ice damage on a successful hit. Wow.
Oh my. Now you have to really appreciate some of the villains in this module. I will turn your attention to, on the same page, Constable Von Freeze, whose moves include slap in the face, big headbutt, and the Freezer's elbow.
Oh, God.
Yes, yes.
much.
Give in to the dark side here.
The Frieza Gorgon. Ram it is just one of its actions.
You have to, you don't have to love this. You can hate it and be entirely justified. But in my deepest heart of hearts, I have so much love and strong positive emotion for how whole hog they went on this sucker.
I absolutely will give you this. Our friend Matt Will Jackson was saying similar. He's like,
up.
the art in here is professional. The layout is professional. They did not need to go to this trouble. This is almost 100 page. Like, this is a full-on game.
On Baconator are rendered in such fine detail, you wouldn't even suspect this was what it is.
Hold up, Jerika, give me a page reference on that.
Oh, this is page 24. He's got 4 weapons.
I want to say that the bestiary of this particular tome is titled Things That Might Attack.
Accurate.
Yeah. You know what I also have to say? I love that the Baconator is tattooed, so his skin has a marbling of bacon.
Yep.
It's really something.
So here's my general take.
Imagine if they put this much effort into making food. Just imagine that world.
Oh.
I had Wendy's for lunch. My favorite fast food burger. I love tabletop role-playing games. You know what I don't love? Forcing them into some terrible chimerical hybrid. It is an incredibly professionally put together atrocity. I will say, no expense was spared.
Oh, no.
What have you found within it?
I just saw on the map.
Oh.
And I don't know how to even
Parse.
comprehend this. Dave's Double Hills looks like a butt.
Oh, Biggie Vale. There's a G missing. Nuggeton. Fort Baconator. Of course, named after General Baconator, who fell in the Great Beef Wars.
His abs were not as
Yes, yeah. He really didn't work that core. Oh my god, it is a thing.
Delightful monstrosity.
Oh, there's even some pre-made characters in here.
Well, right, because it's a fast food experience. You got to get your food, you got to get your character, you got to start rolling dice in under 90 seconds.
Of course, I'll have the order of the Frosty, please. Level 2. Yeah, supersize that. You have resistance to all cold damage. You are truly fresh and never frozen.
I love
Make it a double.
so
You
much.
are allowed to perform 2 actions per turn. Oh, God in heaven, no. So here, if I may, just my general take. Yeah, and it's not even my fresh take. It's Jerry Holkin's take from 2014, because I made sure to go and look at. He was talking about nerd t-shirts where they were just mashing up different IPs, My Other Starship is a TARDIS,
Yes.
Star Trek of Thrones. And he called these things unaesthetic. You just can't mash together 2 concepts that have no, like where the Venn diagram is 2 circles as far apart as the whole width of the universe. You can't just slam them together and be like, what's that middle area look like?
The thing is, there is overlap, though. Have you partaken of the Adventure Zone?
I have partaken of the Adventure Zone.
In season 2, there is a ravenous enemy called the Hunger. And on page 45 of this document, there is an enemy called Hunger.
Hunger's lair. Isn't that just the stomach? Okay.
And I feel like they've got an interesting concept, which is let us fight hunger.
Yes,
and
yes.
it's all of its, attendants and whatever.
They've even got the block text, making the forest a swirl of leaves and branches. All sensation becomes overwhelming and confusing for just a moment. And then you find yourselves back at the entrance of the French fry forest.
And when you return to town, the uneasy feeling is no longer lingering in the air. People are happy and singing. A bard near the city center is playing his famous song, Hot Drinks.
Good.
So,
I mean, we could talk about this forever, or we could turn our gaze away.
I am
somehow.
closing the PDF. I am deleting the PDF. I am emptying my recycle bin, and I am lighting my computer on fire.
No, we need to finish the episode.
Okay, I'll save the last step.
Hello, folks, it's me, Jay, your DM. I use he, him. And this is Jay coming to you from the future. Now, when we recorded this, we were all having a bit of a laugh at the corporate jargon and all the silliness in the document and how strange a world we live in where something like this can happen and take place. And yeah, I think, maybe we were a little overly kind to the Wendy's brand. They make a pretty good fast food hamburger and a decent chili, which I believe is made out of the refuse of the burgers that didn't survive the torturous Wendy's process. And obviously in days since this has come out, it has been a hot topic in the Dungeons and Dragons community, the alignment of a corporate brand. Critical Role has sort of backpedaled their involvement with Wendy's. A lot of people have made very salient and informed points. That being said, Wendy's employs some pretty despicable practices when it comes to farming of tomatoes and the hiring of migrant labor and the refusal to pay fair wages. They employ what is effectively modern day slavery in some instances to get their tomatoes at the price that they desire. One of the few major fast food chains that refused to join in the efforts to clean up the tomato industry a few years back. And importantly, it should also be noticed that they are major backers of a certain party, which is responsible for the human suffering on a scale we've never seen. So it is definitely relevant to stop here, amidst all the fun and laughter at this silly PDF, and realize that they spent a lot of money, a huge amount of money, to get people to want to buy their product and to associate their product with fun times and board games. And I think what we should actually associate their product with is human suffering. And so we should be very wise and careful in the sort of brands that we promote in this community and align ourselves with. And I don't want people to think that Insight Check is supportive of the kind of stuff that Wendy's does. We were blissfully ignorant a few days ago, and now things have been put before us in fields that none of us are, farmers. None of us are particularly well versed on the plight of migrant farmers. Not as well versed as we should be, and we're all a little better educated now. So yeah, we had some fun. We're gonna move on with the rest of the episode. But Wendy's sucks, capitalism sucks, and yeah. Long story short, maybe don't go out and eat a Wendy's today. Maybe don't. They're not a great fast food company. Okay, bye. Love you.
How about we cleanse our palate, Jerika, with a little bit of premium content in the form of new Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition Unearthed Arcana.
I thought you were going to be like Burger King.
Speaking of flame roasted meats, let's talk about those flames.
And this is where Michael Martin Murphy's song Wildfire starts playing.
Dear Jay, note.
There is a new druid. No one's surprised because they're doing, at least one new one for each of the classes. So this is Circle of Wildfire, or Circle of Wildfire. Anyway, so it's all fire-based, and I love it. And you get a nice little friend called the Wildfire Spirit, which harms your enemies and helps you.
It's true, and it's a tiny little like elemental thingy.
Yes. Small, but yes.
I like it.
There's also a Flame Steed option. You can cast Fireball.
Rapidash.
There is a yes. Oh no. I love it more. But it's very interesting because it has both the fire aspect and there are some healing or beneficial features as well.
Yeah, like their 10th level ability lets them light a fallen creature on fire, and should anything walk through the flames, you can choose if it either does 2d10 damage or receives 2d10 healing.
Huh.
Yeah, one of the actions that the spirit can take is to do a group teleport, and then all the things that are left behind get damaged.
Oh, so it's kind of like the self-destructing note teleport?
Yeah.
That's pretty sweet. That's pretty rad.
You can add a d8 to your fire damage or your healing if the little critter's up. It's got some fun stuff there.
To seal in the extra beefy juices.
We are just going to talk in burger metaphors the entire pod, aren't we? This is what we brought.
Good thing it's half over.
This is fresh. This is fresh druid content. Never frozen.
No. Definitely not frosty.
Never even once. So yes, there's 3 new subclasses here. So there's the divine domain for the cleric, which is the twilight domain. It's kind of like a shadow sorcerer meets cleric, except even better. They could just see through darkness forever, and there's some neat stuff there. But the one I wanted to talk about is the onomancy. Onomancy? Jerika, help me out here.
Oh no!
I mean, onomancy is bad, right? So it's got to be ono.
Onomancy. Yeah, that sounds good. It sounds fancy.
Onomatopoeia.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
There you go.
Which is the magic of true names. You're able to do extra things with your magic as a wizard if you know the true name of the individual or object you are trying to affect. They have features that let them learn a thing's true name. They have to make a wisdom saving throw, or they learn the thing's true name.
This is very Name of the Wind.
Yeah, that's
really
what I
like
was
that.
thinking
Yeah.
too. Yes, the whole naming thing. So the mechanical bit I liked about it is I really liked the lore wizard that they put out a while ago, and it kind of fell by the wayside. But at level 6, you get resonant utterances. So you can add a particular resonant word or sound into the verbal component of your casting, and it allows you to
Ew.
mix up your spell casting. So with absorption, if you say, that particularly resonant word as part of the spell, you gain some temporary hit points whenever you deal damage with a spell or something like that. And there's a whole list of them, and you get to pick a few of them as you level up.
I love this kind of Swiss Army knife capability.
Yes.
Yeah.
And one of the other things that they thought was perhaps a little bit too powerful on the lore wizard was it gave them the ability to change the damage type of their spells kind of on the fly. So now they get a similar kind of thing at 14th level. They can make it force or psychic for any of their damaging spells. So it's much later on, and it's only 2 types that you can pick from, but it still has a lot of flexibility. And I like that it's kind of like the word wizard. It's all about.
I love it. I love it.
Pretty
Very
cool.
good.
Choose your own adventure wizardry. I love it.
But yes, that is some of the hot, juicy, indulgent content that we are rocking and rolling with in the TTRPG space today. Our focus today is we are going to talk a little bit about the question of what happens despite your best intentions and everyone's greatest efforts. You have found that some member of the party, some player at your table, has to unfortunately leave. What do you do? How do you roll with the punches if you have that situation occur? Our dearest friend, Drunk Phytologist, asked us this question, which kind of kicked off the conversation of, if someone drops out of a game you're running, but you don't want the campaign to just die, what are some good options? I open the floor.
The campaigns that I've been in have all been like stacked a lot, so that if one person leaves, it's not a big deal. Like we're talking 6, 7, 8 players.
Stacked, not entirely unlike patties upon a bun.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't need your pity.
Yeah, you guys. That's what I meant.
Well, I remember we had our dear Malvidian playing with us early on in our AF list, just our ACK campaign we were playing with RDMJ. And we managed to kind of roll with the punches. He did come back as a villain at one point. Well, not necessarily.
Sort of.
Kind of. His character was always kind of an ass. So.
Yeah, kind of.
He was a character that really believed in himself.
Well, do you think I have a question? Do you think, Jerika, you made an interesting point where your games were stacked with enough players to kind of accommodate that kind of a change around the table. Do you think there's a magic number for that? Do you think there's a number at which point there are too few?
The DM can run with.
Can handle?
I would say 4. 4 seems to be pretty standard and cozy. 3 gets a little weird. It just feels like the DM's doing a lot of shepherding at that point. And with 4, I think there's enough brain power on the player's side to kind of get some momentum where the DM doesn't have to like relate a story like, I don't know, like without any interaction or pushback, if you will.
Well, that even ties into Matt Will Jackson kind of piggybacked off of Drunk Phytologist's question by asking kind of the next level of complication, which is if your campaign is currently pulling from character backstories and the person who's going to be missing is tied into plot threads and quests that the entire party is working on, what would you do? So how do you resolve that?
It's a really good question.
Then, I mean, one thing to do is you pull a Yasha and the player becomes an NPC.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Which is hopefully something that the DM and that player can discuss, have the chance to discuss before the player has to leave and sort of understand a trajectory that would not feel like would not feel too alien to the player's intent. And, if you're playing with folks, that's usually something that's okay.
I recently left a DM, or not a DM. I recently left a D&D game and asked the DM to use my player's death in the way that would suit them the most. And that's how I chose to handle that situation.
Yeah, and of course, the player leaving the mortal plane is always an option.
Yes, indeed.
Or the player could move on to a civilian life too.
Mm-hmm.
They could
start
up a fast food franchise.
I was gonna say get some cows, but it seems like in bad taste now.
No, very good taste, delicious, succulent taste.
Yep.
Or they could do like a fast casual and spell shop, and they could call it Wandy's.
Wandy's. Gosh, with all these
Are you sure
like
you
DoorDash Grubhub things,
God.
I feel like you could have an adventure based on delivering people around town food items.
We know where this ends,
totally.
people. It ends up with us creating an app called Poof, which brings magical food to your door or something like.
Can I actually consume this food?
I mean, you can, but it will never fill you. It's it's this kind of Sisyphusian
Or
thing.
it'll always just be very mediocre.
Sorry, I was thinking of another, not Sisyphus. The vain one that can't drink the water. Oh, fuck me. I can't remember.
Narcissus?
Thank you. I knew Jerika would know it. She's the best.
The best.
Well, we actually put this question out to our to the D&D community at large, and we had a lot of really telling anecdotes. I don't know if you folks, I'm going to just share it here in the show planning. We had a lot of interesting takes, some of which we were kind of touching on in general. But for example, one of our new friends, Scout Gabrielle, was saying that had a first-time player who after 6 sessions decided that D&D just wasn't her thing. So set up a situation where the party was kidnapped and split up. Most of the party escaped and found each other, but they could never find her PC. So kind of in the cacophony of getting captured and escaping and whatnot, it served as a good rhetorical cover for one character just not making it out. There's some,
Nice. You could always have your bards start a musical school or performance school.
JD Lady is saying they had a monk that went just back to their order, so they can always return to their roots.
You could become a groupie of a famous wizard. You could become a Jim Dark Maven.
That's the whole Diz.
Yes, Diz Eberron. Yeah.
Diz Eberron, yes, because I remember there were a lot of jokes about his name the first time he was introduced.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yes, and I almost said it. But I didn't. And I'm thankful for that.
I as well.
Much of it also depends on the meta of.
Yeah. Like if you have a game that uses some of the maritime mechanics, they could commission their own ship and they could become like a privateer pirate kind of thing, or they could become a tradesman if there's a particular trade route or commodity that's relevant to the game or the players, or something with scarcity. Dwarf could go mine for gems if you want to go with the classic route.
You could always fall back on subclass as well, I think.
Yeah.
So, for druids, maybe their circle really needs them for something. And so they get a highly important missive saying, we need your presence here right now. Drop everything.
Get your
circle of wildfire.
You could, all
here.
of the classes sort of have a body like that. Institution or organization or loose connection of people that might, for some reason, contact them and need their help, right?
Yeah. I think one thing that's nice to do is always leave that open door of chancing another interaction with the team, either as a PC and as kind of like a special guest, because if someone has to leave, they might still
burn it all down.
Oh, you could burn it all down. That's true. You could flame broil it to the ground.
Because then they can make a new character. They don't have to remember their old.
Yes, you are. Yes, this is a very good point.
I don't know. Choose your own adventure. I'm not going to tell you what to do.
Always go to your character's backstory. I think you make the right point. If you have a druid, their circle. If you have a monk, their order. If you have a fighter, maybe it's their trainer or the place that they learn the martial arts. Like, if you've spent the time developing the character's backstory, not say that you must or you should, that's always kind of step one for you and the DM to go to and be like, here's who this character is and was before the party. Maybe there's a way to make it sort of circular if the character has to leave the party.
Guess I'm going back to ass-kicking school.
Air, you've DM'd before.
That is true.
Is there a minimum amount of players that you require?
I think the lowest I've ever run with is 3. I would be open to running for so much as one person, but I would have to know that person really well. There's a certain element of the social facilitation of having more people so I don't feel like I'm the sole person locked in this conversation and I get time for quiet. But if I knew that person really well and I was comfortable enough with them to know we could just talk for hours together, I would be willing to run for up to one person.
Well, what number would you prefer?
4. 3 to 4 is my go-to. I don't know how. I'm trying to think. I think 5 is the most I've ever done. But yeah, when I was talking about like it depends on the meta, I also was thinking about like it depends on how things are shaking out at the table, because sometimes the player leaving might not be leaving on the best of terms. We had Wraithwall mention this. If they're leaving on good terms, then it's an exit with the ability to tie them back into the story. And maybe if they're not leaving on the best of terms, rocks fall and only they die. I don't know. That's me editorializing. Wraithwall obviously didn't say that. They're a nice person. I am also here.
Keep it frosty, Air.
Keep it for cold as ice. Which I normally ask them to hold in my root beer because it eats up too much space in the cup.
So it does seem like there's a couple different parts to these questions, like what happens when someone leaves, and then what do you want to replace them, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I was just gonna say about the party dynamics is how can it help a DM drive the story forward, work with the group going forward, because that's a major event for those player characters, most likely. I mean, if it's just getting started, that's another story. But if you're assuming that your characters have been through some stuff and made it out the other end, that would be a big deal. There would maybe be emotions associated with that. There would maybe be repercussions in the group dynamic of the player characters from that. And that's something, it's a challenge, but it's also an opportunity for the DM to maybe build some momentum for a new arc of a story.
Yeah.
If it is a plot line that deeply revolves around the character of the player that's leaving, and I think it kind of leads in to that win one for the Gipper kind of mentality of we're going to do this for them, our fallen comrade. In terms of like you were talking about, Jerika, with how do you balance around numbers? If you were at a comfortable 4 or 3 and you're down to maybe a less comfortable 3 or 2, again, Drunk Phytologist asked some questions that I think are kind of leaning towards answers for those questions about what are your opinions on NPC sidekicks or buffing character familiars to make them more helpful, which I think leads totally back to the druid you were mentioning. That wildfire spirit totally strikes me as like a buffed up familiar.
Yeah. But I also think the idea of an NPC that the players run is a really interesting idea. So Jay likes to throw us friends, NPC friends, and we run them in combat, and we make a lot of decisions for them. And I think that's really interesting. It gives players more tools in some respects. It lets them role play outside of their normal box, if you will. And I've had a lot of fun most of the time with that, unless I absolutely despise the character that I have to run, which is not the case right now. But,
well, I was going to say, in our last game, I got to RP and run the character, which I feel, and I think most of us feel, is our DMJ's NPC self-insert, which is Clarence.
I would disagree.
You would disagree? You don't think Clarence the boy wizard is our sweet boy Jay?
No, I don't think so. Clarence is much more of a nerd, and Jay is a nerd, but there is a very important distinction between the amount of nerd Clarence is and the amount of nerd Jay is, I think.
See, he's going to hear this while he's editing this. He's going to be like, fuck you,
and he can make us say whatever.
Yeah, he can make us dance to his tune. I wonder if Clarence is Jay turned up to 11. Jay's already at 10, so 11 is...
I don't know.
No, you don't think so? I think Jay doesn't think Clarence is a self-insert for sure. Because every time we say it, he gets mad.
Some key character traits that are missing if it's Jay. And it reminds me much more of the character from the Adventure Zone.
Oh, yes, Angus McDonald.
Angus McDonald, yes.
Yes, he definitely.
So, there's I think Clarence has a lot more in common with Angus than he does with Jay.
I would agree with that for sure, yes. He is very much he would be a plucky boy detective if he wasn't a wizard.
He's a boy in distress.
He is. Oh boy, guys, I gotta do a magic. Just give me a second here. Yes. Yeah. We do love Clarence. But yeah, Jay gives us plenty of NPCs to embody and trusts us with them. He gives us his babies and lets us kill his darlings sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. So that, that at least levels out the stats, if you will. It's like there's another PC there.
Indeed.
I also think this is a great time to invite someone who's never played D&D before to try it.
Yeah, but who would have experience trying to do that? Jerika.
I'll never tell.
Yeah, I have a mission to introduce a few new people to D&D, but we'll see how it goes.
Well, now with the Wendy's cross-branded product, you have the perfect source book.
And also the perfect location. I wonder how many people in the past 24 hours have run D&D games in Wendy's.
Well, this is exactly it, right? We had that question about, can you run in a McDonald's?
McDonald's, right?
Can Wendy's really say no at this point? They have facilitated... If they kick you out for playing...
This is the Wendy's experience in its truest sense. I'm eating Wendy's, I'm thinking Wendy's, I'm talking Wendy's, I'm playing Wendy's, I'm rolling dice for Wendy's.
Rolling dice for Wendy's.
It is truly another dimension.
Critical success. I'll have another Baconator. I suppose I can't feel my left arm.
Welcome to Critical Bun.
This is the final nail in the this is when TTRPGs, this is when our success jumped the shark. This is, everyone look down. Underneath you, you'll see a shark. Wave, say hello.
Enter its gaping maw.
Enter its gaping maw and forget all your pain that this world has brought onto you.
I don't know. I don't think it's such a leap. Like, thinking about the Yum Yum Hut and things of that nature, like it's just the next step on this train.
Yeah, the Acquisitions Incorporated, the Rick and Morty, they're opening the door for this. But although we should all know, I don't think this is a D&D cross-branded product. This is just them. They just did this themselves.
Yeah, so the next one's gonna be Wizards and who?
Dunkin' Donuts. D&DDD?
You mean Duncan?
Oh, yes, just Duncan.
Just Duncan.
Duncan Dragons.
Duncan Dragons. I did see Ivan Van Norman shouting out Arby's, saying, as soon as you need me to write you Beef Finder, let me know.
Yeah, I do think Arby's is going to come in there. But Arby's is, I think we're all doomed either way, but it'll be fun.
Most D&D fast food place.
Medieval Times?
It's not fast food.
That's family
There's
dining.
no fast food at medieval times because there was no fast food in medieval times,
I don't know. The food comes out pretty quickly, and they are serving Coke.
White Castle.
Oh, yeah.
White castle.
D&D is a lot of castles.
Mike
WotC and
drop.
WC. It's a match made in heaven
Yeah.
or hell.
It's the
In
doom.
my stomach, either way.
It's the doom we deserve.
Yeah, except they'll go for a sci-fi themed RPG for their thing. It'll be based on sliders.
Oh, that's good. That's good. That's good.
Do we have anything else to say? Do we have any other cues to peruse?
I don't think we do. Do we want to wrap this one up early at the 45-minute mark and cut you a break before episode 100 extravaganza?
Extravaganza.
All right.
Oh, but I do want to say briefly before we roll out.
Okay.
This is the most wonderful time of the year in the Insight Check Pod Discord.
This is true.
It is by far my favorite month of the year because Insight Check Pod crew and also our lovely friends of the pod who are in the Discord, change all of our avatars to Halloween-themed costumes.
He's all spoopy.
And I adore it. I don't know why I love it so much, but it just tickles me. I'm looking at a banana, a snake man, and a mermaid in our chat right now. Guess who's which?
Bachelor number 1, if you were a banana.
And in order to learn which one's which, please go over to Twitter at Insight Check Pod, and a link to our Discord appears in our info therein. And see who's what, or who was what at the time of recording.
I'm already thinking about changing my avatar to some sort of burger-related IP.
I mean, I think that's under your power.
It's true. It's true. It's true.
Embers fries.
Oh,
Do we just change our avatars to Wendy's themed, fast food themed ones after this? A banana's a pretty fast food.
but it's not processed enough. It has to be transformed in many, many, many dark arcane iterations by food chemists.
Fair enough. All right. Well, shall I do the thank yous?
Sure.
Well, we, first and foremost, would like to thank Amy T. Falcone, creator of our chibi faces, which we have mangled for Spooptember.
For our own pleasure.
Spooptober. We apologize. You should check Amy out on the Twitcher. She's there. She's doing arts. She's pretty cool.
She's got it going on. Major way.
Go give her a follow. Maybe give her a sub if you like the cool art she's making.
Check out those mood elves.
Yeah, the great mood elves. I saw the creation of one today. Furthermore, Vinswept, great music making talent that they are. Never Stand Alone. That's the tune that you heard right off the hop and we'll be hearing in short order. Check them out.
Stretch it more.
Yeah, like the dough
We
of a
might get
fresh
to 50
brioche
minutes,
bun.
we'll see.
And finally, I want to thank Jerika and Embers for being here and talking to me tonight. Thank you, folks.
Oh, thank you so much.
It
I
was
appreciate
my greatest
all of your
pleasure,
plaudits.
my greatest honor.
Plaudits. Answering your cues from our collective A's. This
Was
Insight.
check. See, he's going to hear this while he's editing this. He's going to be like, fuck you,
and
Air.
he can make us say whatever.
Yeah, he can make us dance to his tune.
And he can make us say,
fuck you, Air.
and he can make us
Dance to his tune.
and he can make us invite
Jay?
to say,
Fuck you, Air.
I don't think it's such a leap.
I want to
Thank you.
Jay. Being here.
To say,
Fuck you, Air.
It was my greatest pleasure, my greatest honor.